My name is Priya Nair. I am 30 years old. And on a Saturday afternoon in April, I stood in the living room of a beautiful home in Austin, Texas, holding a tray of cucumber sandwiches, while my stepsister pointed at me and told a room full of women that I was basically their maid. The room laughed with her. Not everyone, a few people looked down at their plates or adjusted their napkins or found something very interesting to examine on the far wall. But enough laughed. The easy, reflexive laughter of a group that has taken its social cue from the most confident person in the room. My stepsister Amber had always been the most confident person in any room she entered. She had that quality, the certainty of someone who has never had significant cause to doubt that the world is arranged in her favor. At 32, 8 months pregnant, and glowing in the specific way that happiness and privilege combine, she stood at the center of the baby shower that our stepmother had organized, and she pointed at me. "Don't mind her," she said. Her tone was light and dismissive, the tone of someone mentioning a household detail. "She's basically our maid." I was holding the tray because I had offered to help with the setup. I had arrived an hour early to assist because that is who I am, because helping is what I do when I love someone even when they make it difficult to love them, because I had driven 40 minutes to be at the shower and I was going to be useful while I was here. I smiled. I said nothing. I set the tray on the table. I smoothed my dress, the good one, the dark blue wrap dress I had bought specifically because it was appropriate for a spring baby shower and because I had wanted to look nice for Amber's day. I folded my hands in front of me, and then the host of the shower, a woman named Catherine Park who had offered her home for the event and who had been standing near the fireplace with a glass of sparkling water, walked over. She walked directly toward me. She was looking at my face with the particular expression of someone trying to play something, tilted head, eyes slightly narrowed, the focused look of recognition assembling itself. She stopped in front of me. "Wait," she said. She tilted her head. "I know you." The room, which had been recovering from Amber's comment with the pleasant hum of resumed conversation, went quiet. Catherine was still looking at me with that assembled expression. And then it finished assembling. "You're the one who," she said. Amber's smile disappeared, and she went completely pale. But before I tell you what actually happened, please like and subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's begin. I want to tell you how I came to be standing in that living room holding a tray before I tell you what happened next. Because the context matters. The whole story matters. My father married Amber's mother, Linda, when I was 12 years old, and Amber was 14. My own mother had passed away 2 years earlier, a loss that I had been navigating with the particular quiet resilience of a child who does not yet have the vocabulary for grief, and so carries it in silence. Linda was not a cruel woman. I want to say that clearly. She was distracted and self-focused, and had the specific blindness of a mother whose love for her own child was so consuming that there was simply not much attention left over. But she was not intentionally unkind to me. She did not hate me. I was just not, in the architecture of her concern, a primary consideration. Amber was different. Amber had the attentiveness of a teenager who understood, from the day my father and her mother started dating, exactly who I was relative to her, which was less attention, less priority, less claim on the house we eventually shared. She established this with the efficiency of someone who has done the assessment and arrived at a conclusion and is now simply implementing it. The assessments took the form of the small, consistent cruelties that teenage girls who have decided you are beneath them specialize in. Not dramatic, nothing that could be pointed to and objected to directly. Just the steady application of her conclusion. You are less than me, and I would like you to know that I know it. I responded the way my father had taught me to respond to difficulty before grief made him quieter and less available than he used to be. By working harder, by being useful, by doing the things that needed doing without being asked and without requiring acknowledgement. I helped with housework. I cooked when Linda was tired. I was present and quiet and capable, and I told myself that this was not diminishment, that doing things well was its own dignity. It mostly worked as a strategy for getting through childhood. The problem was that I carried it into adulthood. The habit of making myself useful to people who had established that my usefulness was my primary value. The habit of showing up early and helping with setup and holding trays and smoothing things over, long after the child who had needed that strategy to survive had grown into a woman who did not. What none of the women in Catherine Park's living room knew, what Amber had either not shared or perhaps genuinely not paid attention to, was what I had been doing for the past 4 years. After college, I had worked in public health administration. Not glamorous work, not the kind that generates cocktail party conversation, but essential and demanding and requiring a specific combination of analytical skill and the ability to navigate complex institutional systems under pressure. I had moved to Austin 3 years ago for a position at a nonprofit that worked on maternal health access in underserved communities across Central Texas. 12 months ago, I had led a team that designed and implemented a mobile clinic program that brought prenatal care to rural counties that had no existing obstetric services within reasonable distance. The program had launched in 6 counties. In its first year, it had served over 400 women. We had documented measurable improvements in birth outcomes in the communities we served. The program had received attention. A profile in the Texas Tribune. A feature in a national public health publication. Recognition from the state health department. Catherine Park, the host of Amber's baby shower, was on the board of the foundation that had provided the lead funding grant for the mobile clinic program. She had been in the room when the grant was approved. She had read the program reports. She had seen my name, with some frequency, on documents that described work she cared deeply about. She had not connected the name to the face until the moment she was standing in front of me in her own living room. "You're the one who designed the rural prenatal program," Catherine said. Not a question. Recognition completing itself out loud. The Mobile Clinic Initiative. "I read the Year 1 report last month. You're pre-in-air." The room was completely still. I said, "Yes." Catherine looked at me for a moment with an expression that was warm and direct and entirely genuine, the expression of someone encountering, in an unexpected context, something they genuinely respect. "I have been wanting to meet you," she said. "The outcomes data in that report, the preterm birth reduction in Caldwell County specifically, that was extraordinary. Do you know how unusual those numbers are?" I told her that we had been fortunate with the clinic placement and with the community health workers we had partnered with locally, who had done the essential work of building trust in communities that had reason to be cautious about outside organizations. She shook her head slightly. "Don't minimize it. That program is the model we are looking at for the next grant cycle. Your team's approach to community integration is exactly what the foundation wants to replicate." The room remained quiet. The specific quiet of 30 women recalibrating something. I was aware, without looking directly at her, that Amber had not moved, that she was standing very still at the center of the room where she had been standing when she made her comment, and that the color that had left her face had not returned. Catherine, once she had identified me, was not someone who let the moment pass quietly. She was a woman of genuine enthusiasm and the kind of social generosity that makes a room feel expanded rather than contracted. She began introducing me to the women around us, explaining the program in her own words with the authority of a board member who had read the reports carefully. Some of the women knew the work directly. Austin's philanthropic and civic community overlaps considerably, and maternal health is a cause with significant visibility in the city. A woman named Dr. Sandra Walsh, who I learned was an OBGYN at St. David's, had referred several of her own patients to the mobile clinic program when they moved to rural areas. She shook my hand and said, with a directness I appreciated, "The work you're doing matters more than most people understand." A woman near the dessert table said she had read the Tribune article. Another said her sister-in-law lived in one of the counties the program served. I stood in the center of all of this, and I felt something I had not expected to feel at Amber's baby shower, which was the specific warmth of being seen accurately, of being known for the thing that was actually most true about me, rather than the thing that was convenient for someone else's narrative. I had been standing in that room as the maid, and now I was standing in the same room as myself. Same room, same dress, same woman. Only the information had changed. Amber found me near the end of the shower, when the guests were beginning to leave and the gift table had been cleared and the afternoon light was going gold through Catherine's windows. She came to where I was standing by the drink table. She was moving carefully, the way 8 months pregnant women move, and her face had recovered some of its color, but not all of its usual composure. She stood beside me for a moment without speaking. Then she said, "I didn't know." I looked at her. "I know you didn't." Another pause. "Why didn't you ever say anything about what you do?" I thought about that. The honest answer was layered and not simple, and this was not the moment for all of its layers. So I gave her the part that was most true. "You never asked," I said. She absorbed that. She looked at the gift table, then at the window, then back at me. "That was a terrible thing to say," she said. What I said, in front of everyone. "Yes," I said. "It was." She nodded. She did not try to justify it or explain it away with context, which was more than I had expected from her. She simply held the acknowledgement in that direct and unadorned way and let it stand. "I'm sorry," she said. I looked at my stepsister, 8 months pregnant, genuinely chastened, standing in the afternoon light of someone else's beautiful home at the shower that had been organized to celebrate her. And I thought about 12 years old and the day my father married her mother and the long decade and a half of being less in the arithmetic of a house that was supposed to be mine too. I thought about holding trays, about arriving early to help, about the habit of usefulness that had served me in childhood and followed me into a life I was actually proud of, where the usefulness was genuine and purposeful and pointed at something that mattered. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "I mean it." She nodded again. She started to say something else, and then stopped. Then she said quietly, "400 women in 1 year?" "418, I said. Something moved across her face that I had not seen there before. Something that looked, in the afternoon light, like the beginning of actually seeing me. "Priya," she said. That's incredible." "It's a good team," I said. She shook her head slightly, not dismissing the team, but insisting on the credit. "That's incredible," she said again. We stood there for a moment. The party was ending around us. Catherine was seeing guests out at the door. The room smelled of flowers and cake and the particular warmth of a gathering that had held more than it was designed for. "I'm going to come to the clinic sometime," Amber said. "If that's okay. I want to see what you do." "The mobile clinic is in rural counties," I said. "Austin access is through the main nonprofit office." "I know," she said. I looked it up. 20 minutes ago in the bathroom on my phone. I looked at her. She looked back. And for the first time in 18 years of being stepsisters, of being in the same house and the same family and entirely different worlds, I saw something in her face that was simply honest. Not performing, not positioning. Just honest. "I'll set something up," I said. Catherine walked me to my car when I left. She had exchanged numbers with me earlier and had mentioned wanting to discuss the next grant cycle in more detail, which I had agreed to with genuine interest. At my car, she said, "I'm sorry about what happened inside, with what your stepsister said." I told her it was all right. She considered me for a moment. "Can I say something directly?" I said yes. The people who do the most important work in this world are often the ones who have learned to make themselves invisible, she said. It's a survival skill that becomes a habit, and it means the world sometimes doesn't know what it has. She paused. "You should let people see you." I thought about my mother, who had taught me by example to be quiet and capable and not to require acknowledgement, who had meant it as strength, and who had not lived long enough to also teach me when to let the strength be visible. "I'm working on it," I said. Catherine smiled. "Good," she said. "The work needs you to be visible. The 418 women need more people to know your name." I drove home in the late afternoon and I thought about the room and the tray and Amber's finger pointing at me. And then I thought about Catherine's face assembling recognition across the room. And then I thought about Dr. Walsh's handshake and the woman by the dessert table who had read the article and Amber in the bathroom looking up the nonprofit on her phone. Same room, same dress, same woman. Only the information had changed. I had spent years making myself invisible because invisibility had been the safest place. But the work I did was not invisible. It lived in 6 counties and 418 sets of outcomes data and communities that had reason to be cautious and had chosen, carefully, to trust us. That is not nothing. That has never been nothing. I am learning, slowly, and with the particular stubbornness of someone who learned patience as a survival skill, to let it be seen. The world needs people to know your name. I am beginning to believe that is true.